لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي فضل الإسلام على سائر الأديان، وفضل أمة الإسلام على سائر الأمم، وفضل محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم على الخلق أجمعين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله. ما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for another opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Whosoever the Almighty Allah guides is really guided, and anybody who goes astray has nobody to blame but themselves. Today, Thursday, the 23rd day of Muharram, 1445 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which corresponds, I believe, with the 10th day of August 2023. Normally this is the class for Imam Nuh. In his absence, we want to engage the brothers, and we decided to pick some lessons from Hadith Jibril, the famous Hadith where Jibril came in a form of a human being and came and asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam some questions. And today I want us to look at the chain of narrators from Imam Muslim up to Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Umar ibn Khattab. But then we'll spend much more time on Abdullah ibn Umar, because the hadith goes like this, that one of the tabi'een, with a friend of his, they were in Basra, present-day Iraq, and there were people who had come out with a new bid'ah called Bid'atul Qadariyah, where they say that anything that happens in this dunya, the Almighty Allah is not aware of it. It is after it has happened before He is aware of it. We'll come and speak about that later in some of our next episodes. We'll look at some of the major bid'ah that sprung up even during the time of the Sahaba, because this bid'ah came about at the time of the Sahaba, that some people were of the opinion that the human being has control over all his affairs, and some people of the opinion that, for example, if you do any of the major sins, kabira, you are not a Muslim, you are not a kafir, you are between the two positions. So we'll come and look at that and then try to understand some of these things. So these two guys, friends, students of knowledge, who were tabi'een, students of the Sahaba, they decided to leave their city to go to Mecca at the time of Hajj. Maybe they will meet one of the Sahaba and they will ask him, we are confused. This is something new that has come up in our community. What is the solution? So these two friends, they got to Mecca for Hajj, and then they met Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Umar ibn Khattab, in the Masjid, and then they asked him the question. So in answering the question, he told them, my father Umar ibn Khattab told me that one day they were sitting with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and a man came in with clean white clothes, with clean dark hair. There were no signs of travel on him, and none of us know him. And then he came and then he sat, placing his knees towards the knees of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then placing his hands on the thighs of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he asked the Prophet, Ya Muhammad, ma akhbirni an Islam, teach me Islam. It's a long hadith. So I'll just give you an overview of how the hadith came about. But I want us to look at the chain of narrators, the guys who narrated the hadith through Imam Muslim. The reason why I'm doing this is to give us an idea of some of our pious predecessors, that we can take them as role models. But then our major person we're going to speak about tonight is Abdullah ibn Umar. We're not going to speak about Umar ibn Khattab because last week Sunday we spoke about Umar ibn Khattab in the Seerah class. So if you've not had that information, you can check on our YouTube pages, the Masjid's, Facebook pages and stuff. We'll have that information there. So Imam Muslim, a student of Imam Bukhari, he some of the scholars of his time made him the Imam of Hadith. That is after Bukhari has died. That's Imam Muslim. And Amr ibn Ahmad says he slept in a dream. He slept and then he saw in a dream that one of his friends was holding a piece of Sahih Muslim. He was holding a piece of it. And then he asked him, "What are you holding in your hands?" He said, "This is why the Almighty Allah forgave me and then gave me Jannah." He said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a part of Sahih Muslim." So memorizing it, reading it, the virtue doesn't go back to Imam Muslim because directly to Imam Muslim, it goes back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam because it's the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Imam Muslim had compiled in his book. But then it is his compilation that this student was holding and then reading. Some of them, like Ibrahim al-Handali, was asked about Muslimin wa Hajjaj. He said, "What kind of a man is he?" The difference between Bukhari and Muslim in terms of the arrangement of the book is that Muslim is a little bit more specific than Bukhari in terms of the chapters, in terms of the how he structured his book. Muslim's book is more structured than Bukhari's book. But then again, Bukhari's book is more authentic than Muslim's book for some of these reasons. One is that Bukhari wants to make sure that when he narrates a hadith through you, you really heard the hadith from your sheikh. So for example, you are a student to him and you learn some hadith from him. But then Bukhari wants to make sure that that particular hadith he's speaking about, you really heard it from him. The fact that you are his student, he doesn't give you a carte blanche, a white paper, straight for it because he's a student, then there's a probability that he heard the hadith. That is where Muslim falls short. Muslim is okay. The fact that you are a student and then you learned from him, then there's a high possibility that you heard the hadith from him. But Bukhari says no. He wants to make sure that that particular hadith, you really heard it from him, not because you are a student of his. So that's it. That's where Bukhari's, Sahih is put a class about, Muslims Sahih. Allahu Alam. It is said that one day Muslim was having a discussion with some of his colleagues, and then there was a hadith that was mentioned and then he didn't know the hadith. So he was very sad. He went home that night, lit his candle, and then he started opening his books, searching. And then they brought a basket of dates, the date fruit. They brought a basket of it. He was chewing one, looking through the books, chew one. By the time he realized it was Fajr, he had ate the whole basket of dates, looking for one hadith and making sure he finds it. That is why in the previous episode, I said that some of these people, the Almighty Allah only prepared them. He programmed them. They are the AI of our Islam. The Almighty Allah programmed them to serve the deen. Imam Muslim died in 261 Hijrah. That is, Bukhari died 256. 4 years later, Imam Muslim died. And Imam Muslim was a student of Imam Bukhari. So it is his book that we took this hadith from. So he narrated this hadith. So Muslim said, Haddathani Abu Haythama. Now Abu Haythama is a teacher of Muslim. And Abu Dawud, you hear of Sunan Abu Dawud. Abu Dawud was asked concerning this Abu Haythama. He said, Abu Haythama, Hujjatun fil Rijal, Qala ma kana ahsanu ilma. He said, how beautiful his knowledge is. This is Abu Dawud. So if you know of Sunan Abu Dawud and Abu Dawud says what kind of knowledge this guy has, you must understand the level of that person. Imam al-Nasa'i says, Thiqatun ma'mun. He's trustworthy. Al-Husayn ibn Fahm says, Thiqatun thabtun. He is trustworthy and then he is authentic. Abu Bakr al-Khatib said, Kana thiqatan thabtan hafidhan mutqinan. He is a good memorizer. He is very well versed in what he does. He is strong and then he is also trustworthy. He died in 234. he died 234. Muslim died 261, right? His teacher died 234. So he died before him. The reason why we're speaking about the date of death is that it allows you to be able to authenticate a hadith. Because, for example, if I narrate to you a story from someone who died before I was born, you will have question marks concerning that story. Because how did I meet him? So in the sciences of hadith, we take the birth and then the death years of people very seriously, not because we are going to celebrate their birthdays or their death dates, no. Because we want to be sure that these people really met these people. For example, let me give an example. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah died 728 Hijrah. And Imam Abdul Wahhab, I forgot the exact year that he died. But then, he was centuries after Ibn Taymiyyah had left. One day we were in a discussion with someone concerning Ibn Taymiyyah Abdul Wahhab. He said, yes, even Ibn Taymiyyah, he copied his Aqidah from Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. I said, hey, wait, what are you saying? How can he copy from him when he died 300 years before he was even born? You understand the story? So, if you know the year of death of the scholars, you are able to authenticate and verify whether they had the hadith from him or not. So, Abu Haythama died 234, Imam Muslim 261, and let's go fast. The next person in the chain is Waqi. Waqi ibn Jarrah was born 160 Hijrah. 160 Hijrah. That was when he was born. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal says, he was asked concerning Abdurrahman and Waqi. He said Waqi is a sheikh. And in the field of hadith, when you speak of Abdurrahman, he's also another stalwart. Up till now, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says, Ma ra'aytu a'wa lil ilmi min Waqi. I've never seen anybody who is able to bring together and put. Only saw Waqi get confused about a hadith only one day. That's the one time. It's only one time I got to meet Waqi and then he's confused about a hadith. وَلَا رَأَيْتُ مَعَ وَكِي كِتَابًا وَلَا رُقَّقَتْ. I've never seen Waqi with a paper or a book. He always memorizes everything. That's Waqi ibn Jarrah. And Abu Dawud said Waqi ibn Jarrah had only one eye. He was blind in one eye. Waqi ibn Jarrah. And Waqi ibn Jarrah is also a teacher to Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam al-Shafi'i. He said, شَكَوْتِ إِلَى وَكِيعٍ سُوءَ حِفْظِي فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَى تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي. So this is Waqi. It's also a long story concerning Waqi. Ahmad ibn Hanbal was asked concerning Waqi. He said Waqi is, and he died 196, inshallah. The next person is Kahmas. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says Kahmas is also an authentic person. Abdullah ibn Buraida, also another one of the persons in the chain of narration, and they were twins. And he was born during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, Abdullah ibn Buraida. And then he narrates that when he was born, his father was in a sitting with Umar ibn Khattab when he was born. And the slave boy who came to give the glad tidings that he was born, when he told the father that your wife just gave birth, she gave birth to a boy, he said, you are free, I freed you. After some hours, another boy came in, he said, your wife just gave birth to a boy. He said, oh, I would have freed you, but someone already came and I freed him. He said, no, this is another boy. Meaning the wife gave birth to twins. And he said, I've already freed the other guy. And Umar said, no, since you freed the first one, you must free this one too. He said, okay, I freed him. So the two guys, they were twins. Abdullah ibn Buraida and Sulaiman ibn Buraida, they were twins and they were both judges at their time. But Sulaiman died first, and after he died, Abdullah ibn Buraida took over. And all these people, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, and Nasai, and Tirmidhi, all of them narrated hadith from them. The next person is Yahya ibn Ya'mar. Yahya ibn Ya'mar is also a tabi'i. He studied under Abdullah ibn Abbas. He also studied under Abdullah ibn Umar. Imam al-Nasai calls him a trustworthy person. And it's being said that he's the first person to put dots in the Quran. Yahya ibn Ya'mar or Yahya ibn Ya'mur. You know, at the beginning, the Quran or the Arabs, they didn't have dots, just lines and dashes, but they could know what they're reading. It was Yahya ibn Ya'mar, he put those dots in there. We put a dot below, means it is ba. Put 2 dots in top, it means ta. 3, he did that. Yahya ibn Ya'mar. So you understand who we're speaking about. And it is being it's being said that people, the 3 fluent people, Musa ibn Talha, Yahya ibn Ya'mar, and Qabisa ibn Jabir. And let's go to our main man for the night, Abdullah ibn Umar. So we started from Imam Muslim, we came to Abu Haythama, we came to Kahmaz, we came to Abdullah ibn Buraida, we came to Yahya ibn Ya'mar, and then we are on Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab was born in Mecca. And then he migrated with his father to Medina when he was not yet a pubescent, not adolescent. So he had not reached the age of puberty when he migrated from Mecca to Medina with his father. And during the time that the Sahaba were under boycott from the Quraysh, and then they were under siege in the neighborhood of Abu Talib, Abdullah ibn Umar was amongst the young boys that Umar ibn Khattab would send with food to send to the Sahaba and the family of Prophet Muhammad who were under that boycott and under that siege. At the Battle of Uhud, he was 14 years old. And then he came with some of the Sahaba like Barra ibn Azib. They came and the Prophet Muhammad said, no, you are too young for this battle, go back home. And then they went back home in tears. The following year, when it was time for Ghazwa to Ahzab, they came with their swords when they were 15 years, and the Prophet Muhammad allowed them to join the war. So some of the scholars are of the opinion that because war is a serious business, they could kill, they could get killed, they could be killed. So if Islam had allowed 15-year-old boys to go for jihad, fi sabilillah, it means at that time they were responsible men. So the age of 15 for boys is the age of responsibility in Islam. Even if they don't sleep and see, seminal, fluid from their dreams, so long as they get the age of 15 years, then the pen is what is working on them. They are receiving, reward, and they are receiving what? Sins are written against them. So at this point, I believe it's very, very important that we conscientize our boys. The age of 18-year-old as an adult is unsustainable. It's not realistic. It's not. And it has been proven that it is not. Because some of these kids in their teenagers, 11, 12, 10, they know stuff that some of us do not even know. And they are engaged in issues that we can only even imagine. So as Muslims, we need to nurture and prep the next generation of Muslims for them to understand the responsibility around their necks. For example, if 15-year-old Abdullah ibn Umar is going for jihad fi sabilillah, then our 15-year-old boys should be our imams here. Our 15-year-old boys should be here to be mu'adhin. Our 15-year-old boys should be here taking care of the masjid, being a part and parcel of everyday issues of the masjid. But then what are our 15-year-olds engaging in? They engage in video games. They're engaging in just sporting activities. They're engaging in... And something happened here. I'm not saying this, as an indictment upon us, but it is something I want us all to bring our minds to. Just yesterday or day before yesterday in the summer program, we were on break. And 2 of our girls were arguing. Nicki Minaj is better than Beyonce. I was like, subhanallah. What's going on? What's wrong with you? They said Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. You don't even know that. You don't even know what's going on. And I asked them, in what way is Nicki Minaj better than Cardi B? Let me bring it down to your level so that you understand. These guys, they are girls who are rappers, who are musicians, and some of their music videos is something else. And you see them with long nails, haram hair, wearing all kind of stuff. So you now understand. So our girls in hijab are arguing that between Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, who is better? And I asked them, what is the criteria for you measuring between the two of them that this one is better than this? And then they were just looking at me. You don't even know what you were saying. And these are our potential mothers. And these are the ones who are going to give birth to the next generation of Muslims, whether males or females, to continue the legacy that we have. And they are obsessed with Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. We have a long way to go. I'm not saying this to discourage us or to frighten us, but to draw our attention to the fact that there is a lot of work to be done. And bringing them here for a couple of hours a day or a week, wallah, is not enough, parents. It's not. And how many of us are here actually? It's about 3 of us or 4 of us. And it's only this summer program that we'll be able to have Monday to Thursday, 4 hours a day of constant, studies. Next week, the summer camp is over. They are going to come back to the weekend school, Saturdays and Sundays, 9 a.m. to Zuhur. The rest of the 147 hours, they are with you, or they are in the school, or they are in the house. So whatever time you have with them in the house, please make it productive. The fact that other people are doing something doesn't necessarily mean we should join the bandwagon. I'm very impressed with some of the parents here. The kids, they don't have phones. If they need to use the internet, there is a PC in the house. Kids come here and then you check their phones, you are teaching them, they are hiding the phone, you check the phone, they are on TikTok, they are on Snapchat, they are on Instagram. When you talk, they say, I'm reading the Quran to someone. You are sitting in front of the ustaz, he's teaching you the Quran, you say you are reading the Quran to someone. Are you reading it to Jibril or you are reading it to Mikael? So, if someone like Abdullah ibn Umar at the age of 15 years goes to a battle, at the age of 14, he goes to Uhud. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you're too young, go back home. And then he's weeping, he's crying that this is an opportunity for me. It means we need to step up our games. May Almighty Allah safeguard us. Amen. He was also amongst the people who gave the bay'ah to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ under the tree. At Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, he was amongst the people. That's Abdullah ibn Umar. He studied under the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's enough for us. He is a student of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He studied under Abu Bakr Siddiq. He studied under his father Umar ibn Khattab. He studied under Uthman ibn Affan. He studied under Bilal. He studied under Ali. He studied under Suhaib. He studied under Amir, Zayd ibn Thabit, Sa'ad ibn Mas'ud, Uthman ibn Talha, Hafsa, Aisha. He studied under all these people. So imagine the kind of resource Abdullah ibn Umar was able to gather. And then he's amongst the 7 Sahaba who have narrated more hadith than anybody else from the Sahaba. We all know Abu Huraira, right? Aisha, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Amr. Give me the last person. I've given you 6. Now? Abu Huraira was the first one. Ali, no. The reason why, you see, all these guys were younger Sahaba. The reason why the elder Sahaba, we don't have most of their narration is that, one, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were engaged in stabilizing the ummah. When the Prophet died, some of the Arab tribes said, no, we're renegading, we're leaving Islam. So the likes of Abu Bakr and Umar were always on the war front trying to stabilize the deen. And these guys were young. Abdullah ibn Abbas, when the Prophet died, he was only 13 years old. So he was able to have access to the information these guys were having, and then he was memorizing them. So that's how come you have the younger Sahaba having more hadith narrated through them than the older Sahaba. But then, who is their source of the information? The older Sahaba. So don't get it confused. So he went to Sham, and when we say Sham, that is the Levant, present day, Syria, Lebanon, that area. That's what they call Sham. He went there for jihad. So if you look at the map, just have an imaginary look and see where Medina is and see where Syria is. He went there for jihad. He went to Iraq for jihad. He went to Basra for jihad. He went to Faris, he went to Iran for jihad. So it's not only knowledge that he accumulated in Medina under the tutelage of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all these huge Sahaba or these great Sahaba. He also went out, to give out the ilm and at the same time to also do jihad fi sabilillah. So he combined between knowledge and what? And practice. Nafi' says Ibn Umar went to war in Iraq. And during those days, there was always a precursor to the war where the champion from this side will come out and the champion from this side will come out. And Abdullah ibn Umar, anytime they go to war, he is always the one who wants to volunteer to come out as the champion to fight. And Nafi', one of his students, and this Nafi' is also the teacher of Imam Malik. So look at the trace of Imam Malik. Imam Malik, Nafi', then Abdullah ibn Umar, and Umar ibn Khattab. So our ummah is a blessed ummah, and there's always interconnection between our ummah. The next thing about Abdullah ibn Umar was that he used to dye his beard, yellow or red. Put the henna, as my father has done here. He used to do that, Abdullah ibn Umar. So it's a sunnah. And then he said, when he was asked, he said, I saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do that. So it's part of the sunnah. And Abdullah ibn Umar is someone who is very strict on the sunnah. It got to a point whereby his strictness on the sunnah, some people thought he was mad. One day on the street of Medina, he was on his camel. And then they saw him move right and then move left. He goes to the right side, he goes to the left. They were like, Ibn Umar, just be in a straight path. He said, you don't know what I'm doing. They said, what are you doing? He said, I'm moving my camel left and right in anticipation or hoping that the foot of my camel will step on a place where the foot of the camel of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam stepped before. And this is after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdullah ibn Umar, in walking or riding his camel on the street of Medina, moves right, left, hoping that the foot of his camel might step where the foot of the camel of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has stepped before. So imagine if this is his attitude towards the camel of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how much more the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Abdullah ibn Umar was in a gathering, and then someone sneezed. And the Prophet said, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. And Abdullah ibn Umar said, He said, what's it? He said, that is not how the Prophet taught us. I didn't do anything. I only included, a salat on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, no. The Prophet said, when you sneeze, hitching, just say Alhamdulillah. That's all. If he had wanted, he would have told us to add and do salat on me. He didn't add that. So long as the Prophet didn't add, leave it. That is Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar was traveling with a group, and then they got to a tree, and he got down from his mount, and then he sat down. They were like, Ibn Umar, this is not the appointed time we agreed to have a rest. So why are you resting? He said, one day we were traveling, and then we got here, and the Prophet rested here, so I'm resting here. And then he used to go, when he gets to a place whereby he knows the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has sat here, and then the tree is, dying out, he tries to cultivate the place so that the tree will remain alive, so that next time when he's passing, he can sit under that tree, because he saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sit under that tree. He was amongst the people who went to Ma'araka, to Fathu Makkah. The conquest of Makkah, he was there, and then he was only 20 years old at the conquest of Makkah. Abdullah ibn Umar, he saw in a dream, and this narration is from Salim, and he says that during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, anytime they see a dream, they go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they narrate, the dream to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will explain the dream to them. So at this juncture, I want to say that there is nothing left out of prophethood or signs of prophethood or some of the signs of prophethood except dreams. And this is a saying of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that the Almighty Allah sends information to us now through dreams. Yes. But then, if the information you see in a dream is bringing a new salah or a new tasbih or a new dhikr, then this is not information from the Almighty Allah, because the deen had been what? Had been filled up, is complete. But then the Almighty Allah sends us some information, and sometimes in your day-to-day activity, you see something happening, you remember, I think I saw this in a dream. It happens. So, when the part of the sunnah is when you see a dream that you like, you tell someone that you love, and you're sure the person loves you. And then when you see a dream that you dislike, you only say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim 3 times, and then you spit on your left, and that's it. You don't tell anybody. So it means that dreams hold a very important part of our lives. So it's very, very important we take note of it, because the Almighty Allah will just open just a window for us, guiding us and helping us. But if your dream is, I think, Kamal, you're going to be this, that is soothsaying now. That's soothsaying. Even if you see something in the dream that looks like it is a prediction from the future, for the future, you just do dua that the Almighty Allah give you the best out of it. And if there's any evil in it, the Almighty Allah, pushes it away from you. So Abdullah ibn Umar saw a dream. And in the dream, he said he was a young man. Azaban shabban. And then he said, I used to sleep in the masjid. I saw 2 angels in a dream. They came and then they took me to Jahannam. Abdullah ibn Umar is narrating. He said, in a dream, I was a young man and I was a bachelor. I used to sleep in the masjid. And then I saw in a dream 2 angels, they took me to Jahannam. And Jahannam was levels like a well, when they build a well and they put in the stones, to protect the soil from falling, you can see the stones in there. So it was like that. Jahannam was like that in his dream. And then they had also some of the stones in the well, sometimes they stick out. You can see them that they are out in the well. He said he saw something like that in Jahannam. He said, فَرَأَيْتُ فِيهَا نَاسًا قَدْ عَرَفْتُهُمْ. I saw in Jahannam people that I knew them. I saw them. I know them. And I saw them in Jahannam. فَجَعَلْتُ أَقُولُ. And I was saying, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ النَّارِ. I seek the refuge of the Almighty Allah from Jahannam. فَلَقِيَنَا مَلَكٌ فَقَالَ. An angel met us. He and the 2 angels who took him to Jahannam. لَن تُرَاءَ فَذَكَرْتُهَا لِحَفْسَةٍ. He said, he told Hafsa the dream. And then when he told Hafsa, Hafsa told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the dream. So he told Hafsa, and Hafsa is who? Hafsa is his sister. And he and Hafsa are from the same mother and the same father. So he told his sister. And there's also a narration that Abdullah ibn Umar used to visit his sister, and then he sleeps in her house. She's the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And part of his manaqib, some part of his virtue was that he was fortunate enough to be with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone in tahajjud. One night, he came to visit his sister Hafsa, and then he slept over. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was there in the house, and it was time for him to wake up and then get up and then pray his tahajjud. When he got up to pray, Abdullah ibn Umar came and then he said, I stood on the left side of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he dragged me and brought me to the right side of him. Meaning, in Salah, if there are only 2 of you, the Imam is on the left and you are on the right of the Imam. So Abdullah ibn Umar was fortunate to have tahajjud with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone. So he told Hafsa, and Hafsa told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, you'll be worried that you see yourself in a dream, and then in the dream you are in Jahannam. This strange. So he told Hafsa, and Hafsa told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ni'ma ar-rajul Abdullah. Abdullah is a very good man. Law kanu yusalli min al-layl." I urge him to pray at night. And then Salim said, فَكَانَ بَعْدُ لَا يَلَامُ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ إِلَّا الْقَلِيلِ. From that day that the Prophet Muhammad told him that he should pray at night, he never missed tahajjud till he died. He never missed tahajjud. Abdullah ibn Umar. Another hadith. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the Sahabi, the famous Sahabi, he said, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said about himself that there is no verse in the Quran that he, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, doesn't know when it was revealed, or where it was revealed, or why it was revealed. That is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And the Prophet Muhammad said, if you want to listen to the Quran the way it was revealed, listen to the qira'ah of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So you can see that his badge is from the Prophet Muhammad Abdullah ibn Mas'ud one day was entering the masjid. His right leg was in the masjid. The left leg was outside. He was going to bring the left leg in. And then he said, he heard the Prophet Muhammad say, sit down, sit down, sit down. And then he sat like that. The Prophet was teaching the Sahaba. There were spaces in the masjid. But he saw Abdullah Mas'ud sitting there, one leg in, one leg out. He was like, Ya Abdullah, what's wrong? There are spaces in the masjid. Why don't you come? He said, Ya Rasulullah, my right leg was in the masjid. The left was outside. I was going to bring it in. And then you said, sit, sit, sit. I have no option but to sit down. That's it. I don't have any option. You said, sit. That's it. I'm scared to bring my left leg in the masjid. And then the angel of death takes my life. My last activity on the earth is disobeying the order of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I go to Akhirah and the Almighty Allah asks me, Abdullah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, sit, and then you walk. Why? He said, I don't have any explanation to give the Almighty Allah. So long as you've said sit, I'm sitting, and that's it. So this is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and then he is telling us something about Abdullah ibn Umar. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is way older than Abdullah ibn Umar. And then he said, إِنَّ مِنْ أَمْلَكِ شَبَابِ قُرَيْشٍ لِنَفْسِهِ عَنِ الدُّنْيَا Abdullah ibn Umar. That if you want a young man who is able to control himself amongst the youth of Quraysh, you want the one person, the young man who is able to control himself from the dunya, it is Abdullah ibn Umar. He is able to control himself. The dunya keeps coming, but then he keeps blocking the dunya. He keeps blocking the dunya. It is Abdullah ibn Umar. Al-Aswad also said, لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُنَا وَنَحْنُ مُتَوَافِرُونَ. He said, we were a huge number of the Sahaba, young men, going up and down. وَمَا فِينَا شَابٌ هُوَ أَمْلَكُ لِنَفْسِهِ مِنْ ibn Umar. And there's none of us young men who is able to control his desires except Abdullah ibn Umar. He is able to control his desires. All the young men, problem, one way or the other. But Abdullah ibn Umar, he is able to control his desires. Hudhayfa said, مَا مِنَّا أَحَدٌ يُفَتَّشُ إِلَّا يُفَتَّشُ عَنْهُ جَائِفَةً أَوْ مُنَقِّلًا إِلَّا عُمَرُ وَابْنُهُ. He said, there is none amongst us. When we try to find something wrong with him, we're going to find something wrong with him, except Umar and his son. He said, amongst us, if you go about saying, this guy, he has this fault, this guy, he has this fault, this guy, he has this fault, but Abdullah ibn Umar and his father, we can't find anything against them. They said, Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i says, we used to sit with our teacher Ibn Abi Layla. Then one day Abu Salama Ibn Abdul Rahman came and then he asked him. Ibn Abi Layla is also a tabi'i. He came and then he asked him, Umar kana afdal indakum am ibnuhu? Between Umar ibn Khattab and his son Abdullah ibn Umar, who is better in your sight? He said, Umar, of course. Umar is better. But then he said, Inna Umar kana fi zamanin lahu fihi nudara. Umar ibn Khattab was in a community that he had his peers. But Abdullah ibn Umar lived in a time whereby he had no peers. In terms of his piety, in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his goodness, he had no peers during his time. But Umar ibn Khattab, of course, there were peers. There were people like Ali, Uthman, there was Abu Bakr Siddiq and the rest, the 10 who were granted Jannah. They were peers of Umar. But Abdullah ibn Umar, he grew up without any peers. Ibn al-Musayyib said, لو شهدت لأحد أنه من أهل الجنة لشهدت لابن عمر. He said, if I were to hit my chest and say, this guy is going to go to Jannah, is going to be Abdullah ibn Umar. You know very well amongst us, even in the masjid, there are some people amongst us in the community, you look at them and say, this guy is a good person. Yes. You know very well. There are some people, yes, and it's not being pretentious. They are not pretending. They are not trying to make it up. They are not trying to, act out. It's just that it's a gift from the Almighty Allah, and sincerely, you look at them, you see light emanating from their faces. May the Almighty Allah grant us that. Amen. In another narration, it says that Abdullah ibn Umar, as we said earlier on, was someone who followed the Sunnah to the extent that Nafi', his student Nafi', said, لو نظرت إلى ابن عمر, if you look at Ibn Umar, إذا اتبع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the way he follows the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, لقلت هذا مجنون, you say this guy is crazy, he's mad. Because he follows the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم so into details that your mind cannot comprehend it. That is why they are saying, no, he must have lost his mind, because the way he's able to go following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can't comprehend it. It is not, when they say he's mad, they are not, casting aspersions on him, but then they are saying that your mind cannot comprehend it. That is why. Another hadith, Ibn Umar, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why don't we leave this door for the sisters, for example? Isha just came in, we've not even yet started. Okay. I think they're working on TV, so it will be on. So Abdullah ibn Umar, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was giving a suggestion to the brothers in the masjid that, okay, why don't we leave this door for the sisters? For example, maybe the sisters' entrance is a little bit smaller for them, or it's not enough for them. So let's leave this door for the sisters, for example. And Ibn Umar never used that door until he died. He never used it. Even after the time of the Prophet, Abu Bakr, Umar, don't forget the time of Uthman bin Affan, they had to expand the masjid, they had to do some renovation works in the masjid. Ibn Umar never used that door because he said, the Prophet Muhammad said, let's leave this door for the sisters. You now understand why the Sahaba, some of them couldn't comprehend how he thought, how his thought process was. Abdullah ibn Umar, in all this, Abdullah ibn Umar was a very wealthy man. Very rich, wealthy man. Don't forget, during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, he came out one day in the conservation area where they let the animals graze, and then he saw a very huge, stout, bulky camel. And then Umar ibn Khattab asked, whose camel is this? He said, Abdullah ibn Umar. He said, Abdullah ibn Umar, my son? He said, yes. He said, bring him, go call him. And then he came. Umar ibn Khattab said, Ma hadha al-iblu ya Abdullah? Oh, what are these camels? He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's just that I have some money and I went to buy some camels and I brought them to the conservation area where every animal comes to graze. And that's it. After, they grow big, they get fat, I sell them and I make a profit. He said, okay, what's wrong with that? He said, no, there's nothing wrong with that. Umar said, there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that I can see that your camel is fatter than the rest of the camels. I can see yours is bigger than the rest. It means you have been given professional treatment. When your camel comes, they say, give way to the camel of Abdullah ibn Umar. When it is food, they say, reserve enough food for the camel of Abdullah ibn Umar. If it is water, they say, reserve more water for the camel of Abdullah ibn Umar. It is because you are my son and I'm the Amir al-Mu'mineen, so you are getting unnecessary privilege from the community. Ya Abdullah, he said, oh daddy. He said, go and sell the camel. Sell it. Take only your principal. Whatever profit is on it, return it back to the Bayt al-Mal al-Muslimin, because you've gotten preferential treatment because you are my son. Umar ibn Khattab. Abdullah ibn Umar was traveling, and then they got to a place where they were resting, and then a young boy came with some goats. And Abdullah ibn Umar said, are are you rearing them? He said, yes. He said, sell me one of their goats. He said, it don't belong to me. I'm a slave who have been sent out with these goats for, feeding. He said, okay, let's kill one of the goats, and then when you go home, you tell your master that, a wolf had, taken one of the goats. And the slave said, if I tell my master that, then where is Allah? Where is Allah? Meaning, if I lie to my master, I can't lie to the Almighty. The Almighty Allah has seen that. And Ibn Umar said, true, fa'ain Allah. Where is Allah? And the young man doesn't know this is Abdullah ibn Umar. He didn't know who he was. So the young man went his way. He went into the village, and Abdullah ibn Umar followed him. And then he went to where their house is. And then he entered the house, and then he greeted them. He said, you have a boy here who is a goat herder? They said, yes. He said, I want him. He said, why is it? He said, I want him. He bought him, freed him, bought the goats, and gave it to him as a gift. Abdullah ibn Umar. And the young man didn't know who he was. So Abdullah ibn Umar, wealthy, knowledgeable, jihad fi sabilillah, lived long, and he's a role model for the youth. And we decided to take much time today to speak a little bit about him. This is not, this is not enough. Because if you check in Sirah Alam in Nubala by Imam al-Dhahabi has 40 pages on Abdullah ibn Umar. 40 pages. And I think Imam al-Mizzi also in Tahdhib al-Kamal also has close to 20 pages on Abdullah ibn Umar. And most of the things that are being said about Abdullah ibn Umar in the books that I read is talking about his zuhud, his closeness to the Almighty Allah, his reading of the Quran, his steadfast on the Sunnah, his helping the poor, helping widows, going out for jihad fi sabilillah, and being a staunch supporter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I believe these are the people that we need to be discussing, even as adults. How much more the younger ones who are coming. And these are the kind of stories we should be reading in our homes. And these are kind of videos, the YouTube videos we should be watching with our wives and our kids. Because this is our life. And Imam Malik radiallahu anhu said that this will never be straightened. The affairs of this ummah will never be straightened except with what the first generation was straightened with. Imagine Imam Malik and the time that he lived, he's saying that this ummah will never be straightened with anything except what the first generation was straightened with. So if Imam Malik was born in 93 Hijrah, and then he died in 180 something, 190 something Hijrah, because Imam Malik lived to almost about 80 something years. And then during his time, about 1,200 years ago, he's saying that if we want success, we need to go back to the first generation. And then he was among the third generation. So it's a wake-up call for us. If Abdullah ibn Umar at the age of 14 years is going for battles, I believe our young men should be prepared for the uncertainties of life. They should be prepared. And we should nurture them. And I always say this, we don't have any legacy that we can leave behind better than the children that we're going to nurture on the path of Islam. Umar ibn Khattab could have said, yes, I'm Amir al-Mu'mineen. He could have said, yes, I'm one of the 10 who are guaranteed Jannah. And then that's the end. No. He nurtured Abdullah ibn Umar. That's one of his kids. He had Asim, one of the kids. And during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, one day he was walking at night, as how he does all the time. And then he heard, behind the window, he heard a woman say to her daughter, get up, get up, get up. It's almost Fajr. Let's add more water into the milk so that when we go to the market, we can get more money. And the young lady was telling her mother, no, this is not right. Umar ibn Khattab warned against this on the minbar. And then the woman said, shut up. Some of the mothers, shut up. Is Umar ibn Khattab here? How did he know? And then she said, if Umar ibn Khattab is not here, the God of Umar ibn Khattab is here. And Umar ibn Khattab heard everything. It was right before Fajr. He didn't interfere, he didn't intervene. He just, made a mark on the house, and then he went, led Fajr, and then he gathered his son, Abdullah, Asim, and I've forgotten their names. And then he asked them, who amongst you is going to marry the daughter of the milk seller? They were like, we are the sons of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Our father is the head of state. What are we going to do with the daughter of a milk seller? They were all quiet. Said, who amongst you? And then he was not a suggestion. He was going to make sure one of them must marry that girl. And they were all quiet. He said, okay, fine. If none of you is going to marry her, I'm going to marry her. If none of you is going to marry her, I'm going to marry her. And then Asim said, okay, yo, Pops, I'm going to marry her. Excuse my language. I'm going to marry her. And they asked him, but Daddy, why do you think we must marry her? He said, she has Iman. She has Iman. If she's able to let her mother stop this. And then he sent for the woman and her daughter to come to, the office. And the woman was confused. Why is Umar ibn Khattab wanting us? What did we do? What's happened? And then Umar asked the young lady, last night, why were you speaking so sternly with your mother? And they were like, how did you know that? He said, I was behind your window and I heard everything. This is my son Asim. If you agree, he is ready to marry you. The boy didn't have any say. If you agree, he's going to marry you. And the young lady, this is the son of Umar ibn Khattab, the son of the head of state. And of course, he comes from a pious home. And I believe it is something that we can learn. That in strengthening the bonds that we have as Muslims, we can have these. It's not going to be forced marriages, don't get me wrong. It's arranged marriages. We raise the kids and raise them to see each other in the light of Iman. If we're going to go by the trend or by the trend, I want to see whether he matches my taste. Are you a chef that you want to test and see whether? That is our problem now. So in the end, we end up in haram relationships. And then zina has become so cheap and marriage has become very expensive. So let's go back to our roots. This is who we are as Muslims. So they got married and then they gave birth to Layla. And then when they gave birth to Layla, Abdul Malik bin Marwan sent his son, I think Aziz, I've forgotten his name, Abdul Aziz bin Marwan, or Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Malik, I've forgotten his name. And then he married Layla. And then they gave birth to Umar bin Abdul Aziz. That is if you're Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was called Khamis Khulafa al-Rashidin, that he's the fifth of the five guided. This is who his grandmother was. And he is the son of Umar bin Khattab. So Umar bin Abdul Aziz is a grandson or a great-grandson to Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And the story of Umar bin Abdul Aziz is something different, on a whole different level. Umar bin Abdul Aziz. If you have time, just Google Umar bin Abdul Aziz and read about him. But I'm going to leave you with just one thing. When he became Khalifa, his wife Fatima, he told her, yeah, Fatima, the night that you were brought as a wife, you came in a very beautiful cloth. They said, yes. He said, bring it. It belongs to Baytul Mal al-Muslimin. This was before he even became Khalifa. He said, bring it. It belongs to Baytul Mal al-Muslimin. He said, we did not come to this dunya to live this luxurious life. No. Let's give it to the Masakin. It belongs to Baytul Mal al-Muslimin. On the night of Eid, this is Umar bin Abdul Aziz, on the night of Eid, his children came and they said, Ya Abana, tomorrow is Eid, we don't have clothing for Eid. He checked his pocket, there was no money. Amir al-Mu'mineen, the head of state of the Muslim empire, no money in the pocket. He checked the safe, no money in the safe. The secretary of the treasury was with him. He said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I can see he don't have money. Okay, what we're going to do is we can lend you money, from the state treasury. And then, at the end of the month, when you get your salary, you can pay us back." He said, "Nah, may your mother be bereft of you. Did you spy into the Lawh al-Mahfuz and see that I, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, I will live to next month? I will be alive until the next month?" He said, "No." He said, "Then keep your money. This money doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the masakin." He turned to his kids and then he told them, "لَيْسَ الْعِيدْ لِمَنْ لَبِسَ الْجَدِيدِ وَلَكِنَّ الْعِيدْ مَنْ خَافَ الْوَعِيدِ." Eid is not about wearing new clothes. Eid is about being concerned about your meeting with Almighty Allah. Finally, when he was on his deathbed, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was asked, "What have you left behind for your kids?" He said, "I left them taqwa Allah." It's the fear of the Almighty Allah. That's what I've left them, and that's it. He said, your predecessor, he left monies for his kids and stuff like that. They're enjoying. You can do a will so that, from the state treasury, something will be given to them. He said, "I've left them the fear of the Almighty Allah. If they are good people and they are pious people, it's enough for them in this dunya. But then if they are not pious people and I leave behind for them the wealth of Qarun, they will be useless people in this dunya." That is Umar bin Abdul Aziz. So that is the track that they followed, and this is our history. And this is Abdullah ibn Umar. What I leave with us, Abdullah ibn Umar, just one thing from the reminder is that when the man came to Umar bin Abdul Aziz and then he sneezed, and he said, "Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah." Abdullah ibn Umar said, "No, this is not how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us." He said, when you sneeze, you only say Alhamdulillah faqat, and that's it. This is who we are, and this is our sunnah, and this is our legacy. We ask the Almighty Allah to safeguard us and bless us. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen wa assalamu alaikum. Now.
This is from the police.
Now.